Alright, so I have started trying to lay out my electronics in this thing, trying to make it look somewhat decent compared to my last go-kart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass this relay. So I'm just going to have just the negative side be broken. And so as soon as I plug it in and I turn the power on, I'm going to energize this relay off the bat, and that will power up the go-kart. And then once I hit the button to energize the relay, I will energize one of these two relays. I can't remember which one, but just one relay, and I'll de-energize the other relay so I don't keep burning power, because last time I was burning power with all three relays and I didn't get a whole lot of runtime from just the one 2 amp hour battery to power my 12 volt system, because I don't have a DC-DC still, and I don't know if I'm going to get one yet, so I don't know. That's where I'm at. And then here I have the controller. It's mounted up on the back side of that block of wood, and I've already got the controller wired up, so it is going to the 3 legs of the motor. And I also have the resolver hooked up right there, so that is all ready to go. So now I just need to get 12 volt power and high voltage power to this guy, and then I will be able to get the motor to spin. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do that very quickly, because I've still got to work on that, get that all wired up, and then get a set of batteries over here so that I can run 200-ish volts on that motor. And I also got to get the coolant hooked up. That's lower priority because I'm not putting any load on the motor. There shouldn't be any heat going into it, so it should be okay. But yeah, I got to get that going too. And where I'm going to put the radiator, I don't know, because this spot's taken up here, this spot's taken up by that device over there, and then I'm thinking I will put the radiator just on the side right here. That's what my current thought is. I don't know, but I also need to have room for my shocks to come up, because my shock got to come up from here up to there somehow. Haven't got that figured out, but once I get my air spring done, I will work on that. So yeah, it's another project. I'm actually making my own air spring out of PVC pipe. We'll see how that works once I get those parts fabricated. Alright, this is as far as I got today. I don't know if you can see everything very well with the bright light behind it, but I've got all the electronics up in there, somewhat mounted. There's the speed controller. There's the wire coming down from the speed controller going to the motor. Unfortunately, I don't have that connector, else I would have used that connector, which is what I wanted, but I don't have it. And then that connector right there next to my finger is the connector for the resolver, so I've got that all wired up. So now, just working on the rest of the electronics package, and then once I have that done, I'll be able to hook power to it and hopefully get the wheels to spin. Alright, so there is one that is pretty much built up. I have gotten the holes drilled for the retainment pins, and what I did for that is I printed myself a little jig that had a little 1/8 inch hole in there. Drop that piece on. Once that piece is on, I can just drill the 1/8 inch hole, and then I come back and drill a 3/8 hole, and went back and deburred it. And you know, that O-ring's got a little bit of squeeze to it. The only thing I was a little bit unsure about was how it's going to go over that hole right there, but I went in there and deburred that hole so it's nice and smooth, and so that retainment pin now lines up perfectly with the top. Got my MPTs in. I'm going to change all this. I'm going to put in PIFs, push-in fittings with hoses and everything. So I'm going to have a PIF to a hose to a ball valve going to a T, going to one main Schrader valve like that. So I only have one Schrader valve for both air springs, sorry. And that is how I'll pump it up, just with a bike pump, whatever. And right now, even when I have no pressure in it, and I put the piston on, which is right here with no O-ring, but when that goes up in there, that spring gets super stiff, super hard, quick. I can only go about halfway, and that's going from 0 psi up to, maybe I don't know, 20 or 30 psi, and it gets super stiff. My calculated pressure needs to be somewhere around 50 psi. So I'll go from 50 psi to 300 psi, something like that, when it goes up and down. And then I also printed out this piece right here that has a hole in it. And then I have, where's my other pieces? They're somewhere else. I can also add my other rod and make that an air chamber also, so I can have more air and a softer spring. And then if I need to, I can add oil to the bottom side of the rod to reduce the volume, so I get a stiffer spring. So I think it's going to work out pretty well, just as a trial and error type thing, just to get an idea of where I need to be. So that's where I'm at. All right, so got a little bit more progress done on the pre-charge and the main contactors. I'm not going to use the other contactor. I'm only going to switch one leg, which is perfectly fine for what I'm doing. So pre-charge on, main power on, pre-charge off, ready to go. And now it's hot, ready to go. My next step is to hook the battery up. I've got the positive right here, and I need to take the negative. The negative will go up and hook up into here. Once I do that, I will be able to power the controller up and see if I can get this motor to spin. Once I can get the motor to spin, I can spin the axles so that I can cut the discs off that, so I don't need to buy spacers. So I'll spin it, and then as it's spinning, take a cutting wheel to cut off the hub, or cut off the disc where I want it to. So, yep, that's where I'm at. Alright, I'm working here with Roger. He has taken over my computer and he's running through the setup for the Lebowski. We have gotten through the first spin on the motor in sensorless. Everything is working like it should, and just sitting there working through it. So, pretty happy with everything. I got my test battery hooked up right here. It's 160 volts going up to the Lebowski underneath the wood, and I think that's about it. Took off the CVs, took off the suspension. My friend Ben is going to take care of that and weld that up because I am no welder. And then he had a much better idea for these pieces right here, because he looked at this and was like, oh, that's not going to work. So yeah, he's going to fix that, or he came up with a great idea, so you'll see that in a little bit. Alright, so going through hull calibration, just rev it up. I don't know if you can see. Just gotta run it up and down so many times. And unfortunately, I don't have regen hooked up, or else this would be a whole lot faster. But yep, getting there. Alright, so I had 160-ish volts and the motor was spinning at about 3,000-ish RPMs. I did a RPM check on this guy right here, just put duct tape on it and did that, and I was only getting like 334 RPM, and it's about a 10-to-1 ratio, and so I was only getting, you know, basically 3,300 RPM out of the motor, which was way too low. And that's with zero field weakening, zero anything, just straight out of the box, but still too low. This motor runs with about 400 volts stock. So right now I was at like 2.5 times lower. Now I'm at about 2 times lower.